Welcome back to my channel, everybody. If you don't know who I am, my name is Lindsay and I am the review queen. But as you can see, my crown's not on me today because today I'm not doing reviews. I am doing spooky stuff for spooky month, spooky season, that kind of thing. So as I said before in my post on YouTube, I'm going to do a series called Terrifying Tipsy Tales, where I talk about stuff while tipsy. So I'm going to do at least 4 videos of those this month. And, if there's anything else you want me to do that's terrifying while doing it tipsy, unless it becomes drunken, dark details, let me know what you want me to talk about, scary places or whatnot. So today, and I'm going to mention the other episodes too, today's episode is how I became interested in the paranormal. Then the second episode is going to be visions that have actually come true, as well as dreams that have been coincidences and stuff. And then the third episode will be about this experience with a shadow figure. And then the last will be this experience of me seeing a full body apparition when I was 9. So today you're seeing my experiences, what got me into the paranormal and stuff. So yeah, if I keep doing this, it's a little bit itchy, and I'm already a little bit tipsy. I've been drinking this very delicious coffee that has 2 shots of this very spicy, tasty liquid. And so I'm already halfway done with this one. And then I'm going to nurse this beer later, or spicy gold. So very good. Okay. My introduction with paranormal didn't necessarily happen because of an experience. I will say that right now. I never had any experiences with the paranormal that caused me to want to explore it. It actually starts off kind of depressing, and I'm going to try so hard not to cry because even after all these years, it's kind of still painful to talk about. But it's the reason why I got into paranormal. So, my experiences with the paranormal, or what driven me into paranormal, kind of started with me having a mission to find out if the afterlife existed. So when I was 7 years old, I was formally introduced to death. I know I had relatives die before I was 7 years old, but it was usually with people I wasn't exactly close with. They were usually like distant relatives, or they were like extended family. They weren't like, aunts and uncles or anything like that, or grandparents and stuff. It was like second cousins and great aunts and uncles and all this other stuff. So I had actually lost 2 loved ones and a kitten when I was 7 years old. I think the kitten died first, and then my uncle died, and then a few weeks later, from what I recall, my step-grandfather died. But my uncle's death hit me the hardest. And, 36 years later, it still hits me the hardest. And I remember learning about his death like it was yesterday. I was at home playing with my brother, a neighborhood kid, and at the time my best friend. And we were outside playing, and my mom comes out on the balcony in tears, and she's crying that my Uncle Chris had died and of an apparent heart attack. And keep in mind, my uncle was 20 at the time. And he wasn't overweight or anything. He was quite skinny. And my mom had been affected by his death because, she saw him as her little brother. And I didn't know exactly what death was back when I was 7. When you're a kid, you kind of have a hard time grasping certain things. And But the thing that I do remember was, sorry, my asthma was bothering me, was that I was never going to see him again. I had a feeling I was never going to see him again. I didn't know what death was, but I knew I wasn't going to see him again. And it's kind of interesting because, like, when I think back on it, I didn't know what a heart attack was at 7. I did not know at 7 years old that those things can affect you, can kill you, that kind of thing. So here's some background. My Uncle Chris is the youngest child of my dad's parents, or my grandparents. They had 7 children. My dad's the oldest child, and my Uncle Chris was the youngest. And my dad is like 17 years older than my Uncle Chris. So like my uncle would have been like his kid brother, I guess. And he would have been 13 when I was born. He would have been 14 later on that year, but his birthday was in September and my birthday was in March. So he would have been 14 that year, but he was 13 when I was born. And I considered my uncle to be like a brother of mine too. So he wasn't just an uncle to me. I considered him to be an older brother because at the time, my brother and I were the first ones in our generation to be born, so we didn't have anybody else other than my Uncle Chris. So he was 20 when he died, and he died on May 6th in 1989. And my grandparents had an autopsy done, and they want to know why he had a cardiac arrest. And, you know, the autopsy immediately ruled out that it wasn't a heart attack like we thought it was initially. And it, like I said, ended up being cardiac arrest. And there's a difference with a heart attack and a cardiac arrest. A heart attack is like when you have like, your heart fails because there's blockages in the arteries. Whereas cardiac arrest involves something electrical within your heart. So his arteries were not clouded. It was something electrical that happened to his heart. But the autopsy it was inconclusive about what caused the cardiac arrest to happen. So they knew a cardiac arrest had caused him to die, but they didn't know why he had it. He didn't have high blood sugar. There was no indication that he had any type of heart disease. There's no indication that he had any drugs in his system at the time that his heart failed. And it worried our family when we had these inconclusive thoughts, because you can imagine how scared the rest of us were, where, you had your youngest, my dad and my aunts and uncles' cases, you can imagine how they were scared, like, oh my God, there's something that killed our brother that caused his heart to fail, and we don't know what it is. What happens if it affects us too? And heart disease is not genetic in my family at all. He's like the only one that has died from heart failure. And so we kind of got worried about our heart health. And it was kind of terrifying, the concept that you could be healthy and still drop dead while you're playing tennis. Because that's what happened to him. He was playing tennis and he dropped dead while playing with my other uncle, Tim. But the family began to have theories about what caused his heart to fail. Some suspected he did die of drug use, despite the inconclusiveness of the test results, because, that could have been something my grandparents kept quiet about. Others thought that maybe my uncle had, like, Marfan syndrome because he was very tall compared to the rest of us. Like, he was over 6 feet tall. And if you ever met me, I'm a shorty McShort. I'm only 4'10", I'm sure, like, my mom's side of the family. My dad's side of the family are the ones that are tall, but no one was as tall as my uncle. And no one has really been close to my uncle's height in our family. Or, like, on my dad's side. Well, the suspect nowadays of what would have caused his heart to fail suddenly is, and I am reading as I'm talking about this. I'm probably gonna mess this up. The acronym for it though is HCM, and it's hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, and it's a sudden cardiac death is a major complication of HCM, especially if you had never had it diagnosed before, because there's at times there's no symptoms to it. And this is known to take down athletes on the field and in the court, like it did my uncle on the tennis court. And, my uncle's death did cause me to learn some things. My mouth is getting dry, so I'm going to have another stinky. Alright, so this might go from terrifying tipsy tales to drunken dark details. So a few things that I learned from his death was that you don't have to be old to have your heart fail on you. You could be young too. I mean, like I said, he was 20. And the other thing is that my uncle wasn't overweight or obese. He was skinny and athletic. So those were lessons I learned early on and stuff. I didn't react immediately to my uncle's death. I had a famous delayed reaction. And it was like 4 days later where I started to react to his death. And it just hit me. I remember it hitting me abruptly. And I remember we were in a townhouse, right, in South Bowie. And I was between the couch. There was like this little hiding space between the couch and the wall in the living room in this townhouse. And I just started crying behind there. And I just became afraid of death all of a sudden, And I was upset that I wasn't going to see my uncle again. And how things would be after death. And it was kind of funny because, I'm 7 at the time, and I thought 11 years old was old. But my dad had found me. And keep in mind, my dad's my uncle's oldest sibling. And he sat me on his lap in a rocking chair, and we just talked about death that day. And he made me feel less afraid of it. So it's not so much dying in general, it's how you die that I'm more afraid of now. But not death in general. And, yeah. So, he had a funeral, but it was open casket. If you don't know what open casket is, it's when you can see the body. And my grandmother did not want my brother and I to go to that because of that. She didn't want us to remember my uncle that way. She wanted us to remember Uncle Chris alive, basically. Because keep in mind, like I said, I'm 7. My brother at the time was 5. He would have been 6. He would have been 6 that year. And I remember being mad at that at the time. I felt like they were denying me from saying goodbye to my Uncle Chris. And because like I said, I saw my uncle as an older brother, right? But it's funny. I'm a mother now to 2 children. Who Alex is 12 now, and Tess will be 11 next month. And I don't. If they would have been me and my brother's age when my Uncle Chris died, I think I would have been hesitant about them seeing I would be hesitant about them seeing anybody like that too. So even though I was mad at 7 for not being able to go to my Uncle Chris's funeral, I understand now as a mother why my grandmother and mom wanted that. But it's interesting because I still have lingering feelings of guilt about it, which is weird. Even all these years later, I still feel guilty about not going, which sometimes in my mind forms weird blocks. I don't know if it's because of my disorder, which I know is going to be vague as shit, but like, I think this is just one of these things that I have unintentionally obsessed over. And, it makes sense why I didn't go, but there's a part of me that feels guilt about it. Which is weird because, in 2014, I think I began to develop pagan beliefs. And, around the time of Samhain, which is around the time of Halloween, is actually what Halloween is based off of. It's like their day of celebrating the dead, honoring the dead. And even with that belief system, I still can't get over this guilt I have about not going to my uncle's funeral when I was 7, which is weird. Because I know now that I feel like they're watching us. I don't know how the hell I got it in my head that a funeral was the only way to say goodbye to somebody. I didn't know how I got that because no one ever really taught me that. But yet I developed it for some strange reason. But I do honor his death still on the day he died, which is May 6th, on a Halloween or Samhain. And on December 25th, because my grandfather, my uncle's father, or my dad's father, died on Christmas Eve in 2007. So I kind of started doing a ritual on Christmas Eve where I do a shot. And mostly for my grandfather's, honor. But it has begun to encompass other relatives, including my uncle and my grandmother and other people. But despite all this, despite that I've accepted that the afterlife I personally believe that the afterlife exists, And despite that, and knowing that, or believing that your last loved ones can watch over you, I just can't shake this guilt 30 plus years later that I didn't go to his funeral. So because of that, when I was 7, I wanted to find evidence of an afterlife so my uncle and I could be reunited to see each other again. And when I was 7, that evidence would involve ghosts, because if ghosts existed, then that means an afterlife must exist too. And, as I said, if there was an afterlife, I would be reunited with my Uncle Chris finally and stuff when the time comes, which I'm hoping it is somewhere beyond March of 2082, because I plan on living to being over 100 years old. And I would tell him that I'm sorry for missing his funeral, even though I think he would understand why I didn't go. So that's the reason why I got into the paranormal, was to find evidence of an afterlife, so I could be reunited with my uncle one day. So it's not based on any experiences. It's just a mission to prove that the afterlife exists, so I can see my Uncle Chris again. So yeah. Well, y'all, that's today's vid. If you like it, smash the like button. So you can tell me in the comments if you believe in it. If you don't believe in it, that's fine. My husband is not a believer in the paranormal. I have a brother who doesn't believe either. So it's fine if you don't believe in it. But if you do believe in it, share your experiences of what got you into the paranormal. Was it losing somebody and wanting proof that you can be with them again in the afterlife? Or did you have an experience that made you want to search for the truth more? Or you were just curious and you got pulled into it? So let me know that in the comments. Well, y'all, if you subscribe to my channel, I'll be absolutely delighted, and I'll see y'all later. Toodles.